makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. Today, I will be having a conversation with Amy Gardinier, the co-founder of Givefinity, a free mobile app that makes volunteer tracking easy. Amy has a long history of volunteering and serving others, and her passion for inspiring others to give back led her to start Givefinity with her husband, Kenton Gardinier. Join me as I learn more about Amy's journey and mission to make volunteering more accessible and easy for everyone. Good morning, Amy. I am thrilled to have you with us today. Can you tell us more about your background and how it led you to co-found Givefinity?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me. So my husband and I really feel like volunteering helps the community be a better place. And oftentimes we have found that we get more than we're giving in those volunteer experiences. And that is something as parents that we've tried to instill in our two teenage daughters. So not only have we volunteered, but I've also worked with many nonprofits and managed and coordinated volunteer activities.
That's very nice. But I know that before you started the company, you were doing something else. But what is that thing that pushed you to say, "Hey, I'm going to start this organization"?
Yeah, so really, it did come from our daughters. So we were sitting around the dinner table one evening, and our oldest daughter at the time was a freshman, and she was involved in the Key Club organization at her school. And if you don't know much about that, that's an organization that requires kids to volunteer. In her case, it's 20 hours per semester.
Wow.
And the kids are walking around with pen and paper. And so they go to their volunteer activities, and then a supervisor signs off just to validate that they were there. So she was talking that evening, and a friend of hers had lost her paper, and it was towards the end of the semester. And so there was a little bit of panic going on. And so because of that, and my husband having a tech background, he was like, isn't there an app for that? Or isn't there a way to digitize it? Similarly to the kids nowadays log their volunteer hours for driving to get their driver's license on an app. So we kind of put our heads together and said, okay, how can we streamline the process of volunteering for high school students, as well as those teachers and club advisors who are managing it all. So these kids have their pieces of paper, and then they're having to turn them into the teacher, and then the teacher's having to manually input that information. So we were like, we'd like to make this easier for everybody so they have more time to give back and do fun things for themselves.
Wow, this is amazing. Just one conversation, you listen to your kid, just listening to your kid and the issues the issues she is facing, and you two put together, hey, we can fix that issue by doing this. But you didn't just solve your own daughter issue, but you also solve it for all other parents.
Yes.
And I can imagine that, especially in high school, it's the end of the year, you need to complete this, and then, where's my hours? I don't have them. And the teacher's like, where's your hours? And then they probably think that you're lying because you didn't do it. And in reality, you did all that. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think it's just an amazing idea, and that you get inspired by your daughter to start it. So can you talk about any upcoming plans or developments for Givefinity?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about where we are and where we hope to go. So while the idea started with that mobile app that anybody could use, high school students or otherwise, because there's people doing community service for nonprofits, there's people doing community service and volunteering for profits. A lot of corporations want their employees to give back, and they give a certain amount of time. So that was kind of where the app came into play. And so then we developed what we call our enterprise organizational dashboard. And so that's where those volunteer coordinators can have all the information that is coming in from the app all on one dashboard. So that's really helpful in the case that we are talking about for teachers. So they can see, okay, my students have to have 20 hours and we're 2 weeks till the end of the semester. And some of my students only have 5 hours. So let me be able to email them and give them friendly reminders and that sort of thing. So over these next couple months, what we really are trying to do, since we just released that dashboard at the beginning of November, is getting the word out about how it can help organizations, and then getting feedback from those organizations of how we can make that dashboard even better. So one of the things is we would love to be able to have the integration where the different volunteer opportunities can be easily accessible through that. So we're not only tracking the time, but also helping provide the opportunities.
So did I hear you say that in the app, the teacher can actually send a message to the students?
They can. So through that organizational dashboard, they can say, hey, you know what? I can see you're only halfway through the goal or a third of the way through the goal. You know, just want to encourage you. We've got 7 more weeks left in the semester.
But as also at the beginning, I know that you also talk about that someone has to sign off from it. From the app, do they still have to do that as well? Or the teacher is just happy with the hours that's adding into the app?
Yeah, you know what? We found that it really depends on the school. Oftentimes, they do need that supervisor signature. And so that is one of the beauties of Givefinity is not only are we saving paper, but it can be electronically signed by the supervisor. And then there's that validation piece where that supervisor's name and email address is also input into the system. So it helps alleviate any risk of forgery and whatnot. And we can also capture photos. The volunteers can take pictures as they're volunteering as proof of evidence that they were there. So sometimes schools will do like club-wide activities where they might not have a supervisor, but oftentimes that's the case that they do have one.
This is amazing. But you know, one thing that I know as a parent myself, I think one thing that I will worried about is the privacy of my child. So how serious do the organization take that to make sure that whatever information the kid is inserting into that app is being the privacy been taken very seriously? What kind of thing you guys are doing for that to make sure the kids are safe?
Yes, that is definitely topmost of concern when we're dealing with anybody's data, but especially our students. And so we work closely with our IT department to make sure that all of that is encoded and marked in private as it should be.
So pretty much no one can really track the kids where they are, or the things that only the teachers only can see what's been given for them to see.
Yes. That's correct.
I don't know how, I don't know how that moment was when you're sitting in that table with your daughter. I don't know how that moment was, but I think it was one of the best in my point of view, because you are fixing a very big issues that really stress, because a lot of us as parents, we don't think about our kids. Actually, they have stress. Because we think like, hey, we pay the bills, we feed you, we give you clothes, and you should be happy. Why can you be sad? But they do have stress. They do have issues. It might not be as big as our issues, but for them, it's big.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I think that you're solving one. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I was going to say something else that we're hoping that these students can gain is when you're taking these pieces of paper and you're turning them in, sometimes you'll get to senior year and maybe you're applying for an internship, or maybe you're applying for college or university or a scholarship. And oftentimes those people are asking, how have you made an impact in the community? And so to think back and remember, they're having to be really proactive to write all that stuff down throughout their time in high school. And so the great thing about Givefinity is it's all in one place, and then they can export a report where they can see all of the different experiences they've had through volunteering. So that report card hopefully helps them be able to highlight some of their successes and help them stand out as they're applying for whatever their next venture might be.
Exactly. But also one thing also that I like is the fact that you're giving corporate employees a chance to actually showcase the skills out of work. Because just because we're a marketing expert or we are a great manager, but there's other things we like to do in our life that has nothing to do with work. So you're also giving them that chance too, which is very unique as well.
Absolutely.
So now, what are some of the challenges you face in creating and launching Givefinity, and how have you overcome them?
Yeah. So one of the big obstacles we had is COVID. So as we're having this dinner conversation at the beginning of 2020, as we all know, March 2020, everything shut down. So students weren't in school, volunteering really wasn't happening. And so we knew the timing, it was not going to be ideal, which it ended up working out because it did give us more of a ramp to get things ready, think through our idea. And then when everything was ready to be back and people were going to go to school in person, and even when initially the schools were back in, a lot of those volunteer activities, as they were trying to do, they were thinking creatively, how can we do things without having to be in person? So writing letters to military overseas, or even things of like, how can you help your neighbor? Like maybe your neighbor needs help mowing the lawn due to a surgery or illness, or they're older. And so we kind of saw a little bit of a shift in volunteering. So that has been one of the obstacles of COVID, of figuring out the right timing. And so that's why we chose to launch this summer when we did.
But also, I think one of the things as well, you also talk about in November, you released a new version of the app. So I'm thinking during COVID as well, you guys were working behind the scene, making sure that when everything went back to normal, the kids will have something even stronger to work with.
Absolutely. You are correct. Yes.
But I love the idea of sending letters to military members, let them know they're not alone even through COVID. I think I love that idea.
Yeah.
So what impact do you hope Givefinity will have on the volunteer community and beyond?
Yeah. We have big dreams. So we would love to equip these high school students so that they see the value that they bring, to help them also determine, what do they want to do in life? And so maybe these volunteer experiences that they are tracking will help them. Okay, I think that I really want to be a vet, but I volunteered at the local animal shelter, and that's hard for me to see animals suffer. So that's probably not the best fit for me. So I'm going to change, that it'll help them whittle down. Or maybe they're in an office and they're filing papers because it was something that was needing to be done. But being in that office environment, they were like, I really love this atmosphere, and I could see myself thriving and bringing a lot to the table. So that's one thing, is we want to help equip our students. And by doing that, kind of create lifelong givers that will make the community a much better place. And in addition, we want to make volunteer tracking less cumbersome for our teachers and our volunteer coordinators, because they work so hard, oftentimes in stressful situations, and they don't get paid enough. So if we can do something to give back to our teachers who give so much to our students, we would love that.
So how do you plan on doing that? I'm curious to know.
Yeah. So we just are trying to get the word out about that dashboard and how we can help save them time.
Do you plan that perhaps doing fundraising for them will be a good idea?
Fundraising for the teachers? That's great. And I'm not sure we had thought about that, but yes, they are definitely always needing more funding.
Yes, I know, right? Yeah. So now, how does Givefinity address diversity and inclusion in the volunteer space?
Yeah, so that is something that is near and dear to us, and we want volunteering to be accessible to everyone. So oftentimes, as we're getting into the schools, we want to make sure that the schools, as we're talking to them, have volunteer opportunities on campus. So maybe that looks like tutoring fellow students, so that wouldn't interfere with having to take a bus home, or getting to jobs after school and whatnot. So what can we do to encourage that?
Yeah. Man, you are one step ahead.
Well, we try.
So how can individual and organization get involved with Givefinity and support its mission?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So if anybody knows of a teacher or a principal or a superintendent, we would welcome the opportunity to meet with them to talk through how they're currently volunteering at their schools and what we can do to come alongside to help support them.
But do you also do the same thing for corporations?
You know what? While everything is definitely applicable for corporations, our target market right now is the school systems. So public and private schools, kind of within that, we are also talking to different PTA and PTO organizations too, because they do a lot to support the teachers and the students as well.
So you make sure that pretty much the company main focus is the kids, to make sure that the kids are able to volunteers and then build their skills. Because I know when I was in college, I wanted to be a cop. Oh, not in college. And when I was like in third grade, fourth grade, I remember I see a woman police officer arresting a guy. That was the most beautiful things in life for me at the moment. Oh my goodness. I completely want to be a cop. And I went to school for it. I studied that. But at the end, I decided I didn't want to do that for my life, because when you have children, I don't want gun around my house. So I decided I don't want to be a cop anymore. But it's good at what you are doing. I guess what I'm trying to say is what you are doing is a great thing, because sometimes the thing that we think that's what we want to do is because that's the only thing we know. But if we can have an open mind and go out there and volunteers and do different things, perhaps we'll find that click, that thing that just when we do it, it's like, oh, this is awesome.
Yes.
And we can make that choice of going to college and study that from the beginning.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
So now, I know that managing that can be a lot of work. Are you working on it full time, or is it something that you do just on the side? How does that leadership wise is working right now for the organization itself?
Yes. So I do work full time on it. So since we are a newer business that launched last year with our products to the marketplace, yes, I work very hard on it.
Yes, it does require a lot of work. I can tell you that much.
Yes. Juggling many different things. So
yes, it's a lot, especially an app which require a lot of help, also a lot of things to get done. Make sure the safety and then the mission of the company stay in place and everything else. So I don't know how you juggle it, because I know you're also a mom. So how do you juggle between all of that?
Yes, you know what? I think that's a great question. And I feel like it is something that I'm constantly learning. So to keep it balanced. Our daughters are in high school, and so they are older. And so there are chores around the house that maybe I was doing for them that they are doing for themselves now. And then I think that something that I've learned is it's real important to have boundaries. And so there's times, even when there is still more work to do, where I have to turn it off, because that time for us to sit around the dinner table is really valuable. And we have a short amount of time with our kids before they launch to their next steps. And so making sure that I don't miss out on those opportunities as well.
This is awesome. Not only as a businesswoman, but also as a mom. So you're making sure that your kids doesn't feel left out just because mommy have a company to run.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And we've really tried to incorporate them and get their feedback along the way, whether that's asking about different colors for a logo, or particularly when the design of the app was happening, like, how does this feel? Is it intuitive? Does it read well? Because the reality is I'm not a lot older than a high school student. And so what might be appealing to me is not going to resonate as much for them, or what I think might be important in the app isn't as important to them. So there were times when we would meet with them, and I would even survey their friends and ask them different questions about it. So trying to get our friends and family involved too.
Wow. And you know what? That's a great idea, because they are the one who's going to use it anyway. So I think that one of the issue we face as business owners, sometimes we think that what we think is good for us, that's what's good for everybody else. That's what they want. Right. But in reality, that's not the truth. So what you did is you went straight to your target market, said, hey, this is what it is. Yes. But what do you think about it?
Yes. And one lesson that we learned that came out of a great focus group that we did with teenagers when we were in in our beta phase, which was really helpful, is initially when we had the launch of the beta version of the app, it was a monthly fee. So it was like $2.99 to be able, it was free. There's the free version, but then there was this upgraded one where you could have more electronic signatures and fancy reporting and that sort of thing if you did that. And so it was really interesting meeting, because we were like, if we do that, then we won't have any ads and the app will look nice and clean. But the resounding feedback that we got from the high school students was they will not pay for an app.
No, we students, we make the money.
Okay, it's like a cup of coffee or it's like one ice cream a month that you're giving up. And they were like, well, one, we're busy volunteering. And so
True.
our time, we're not making as much income as if we were working all the time. And they were like, it's just a barrier to entry. Like we would have to go to our parents to ask for it. And then it's going to, it would just, they were very loud and clear that would be a barrier to entry. And so we were like, no, that's really great feedback. And that's, something that we can change and we can make that easier. So, and we also wanted to make it accessible for everybody. So, if somebody didn't have the money to do it, we wanted them to be able to have all the features at that free level. So.
But I can't blame them. They are the future of the country. They need to learn how to save the money. They negotiate there.
Yes.
Negotiation time. We'll volunteer. Our time costs money. We're not getting paid that much money, and you want us to pay you too? What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
So now how does it work now? So since you take the premium plan out, so how does the company is going to make money?
Yeah. So our revenue comes through that organizational dashboard. So that's a yearly subscription based on the number of volunteers that the school or organization has on the platform. And so then that's how we make money.
That's a smarter way, actually. The school makes money. It's a business when you think about it. The organization is still a business, even if it's a nonprofit, but still making money, so they can afford it. But hey, the kids, no, we're not paying for that.
Yeah. And hopefully the school sees the value, like they're paying for this service that's going to make it easier on their teachers. So happy staff, happy life. And then not only that, but then the school can have a quantifiable picture of how their students are giving back.
Yes.
So as they're talking to incoming students and trying to increase their enrollment, that is something that they kind of have bragging rights about. Well, you know what? 70% of our students volunteer and give back in the community. And then they also know exactly where, like they're helping at the soup kitchen and they're helping at the local elementary school, and they can really speak to it. So that would help their marketing efforts as well. So they're getting
Yes. And I also think that it's a great thing for the parents, because as a parent myself, I would love my kids to be involved in something that's not only giving back to the community, but also will help them feel they are part of something in this world, not just went to school, come home and then do some homework and play video games. I'm not saying video games are bad. Well, not the best. But going out there and volunteering and helping others, it's a lot better. One thing I think that would be great is to be able to give the parents also access to that, for the parents to see how great that child is doing in the community.
Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. That's good feedback. I like that.
No worries. I'll send you a bill for that.
As you should.
So now, as someone with experience serving on boards for many different types of organizations, how do you see technology shaping the nonprofit sector in the future?
Yeah. I think I think that nonprofits, the ones that I've worked with, they are doing amazing things in the community. And I think that technology is really helping them streamline and be more efficient, so that there's different processes that are happening out there that can keep them out of all the administration stuff and keep them at the heart of getting to know their volunteers, getting to the heart of their mission, wherever that might be. There's so many different nonprofits and everything, but I think technology is really beneficial for them.
So now, what message would you give to a nonprofit organization? Let's say that I tell you, here's 30 seconds to sell it to a nonprofit. How would you do that?
Yeah, so I would say that Givefinity can really streamline your efforts. And at the end of the year, you would have a picture of how much volunteers are giving back to your organization hour-wise. And we know that people's time is also money. And
Yes.
so you could leverage that information to be able to help get grants so you can show that you have all these people that are working and you can really speak to specifically what they are doing in the organization to help it run.
So now, how can they actually participate? How can they join? What's the process? How does it actually work?
Yeah. So if somebody went to our website and reached out to us that way, or you can see me on LinkedIn, then I would be happy to go through and I can do a demo of the dashboard and we can talk to them about what it's like to onboard them.
So they cannot just download the app and start using it. So is there a process of where a school needs to invite, the organization needs to invite, something like that?
That's a great question. So we have a two-prong approach. So we have that app, which anybody can download from Google and Apple stores. And so at any point you can download that and you can start personally tracking your volunteer time, whether your school or nonprofit or organization is doing that. And then if you wanted to have that dashboard for your school or for the nonprofit, then that's where we would meet to get them onboarded for that.
And that's the part that there's a subscription for it.
That's correct.
And also, what advice would you give to someone who wants to get involved with volunteering but may not know where to start?
Yeah, I would say start with thinking about things that you enjoy. If you enjoy working with kids, then maybe your local Y would be a great place where you could volunteer. They constantly need people to help in their daycares or the youth programs to be referees as well as coaches in the soccer and volleyball and basketball. If you're passionate about animals, helping at the local animal shelters. If you like to organize things, then maybe a local business that they might need help or the library. So I would say think about what brings you joy and that you really enjoy doing, and then think about different organizations that need help with that and go for it from that direction.
So do you have any advice for women that want to start their own companies or want to get involved into business?
Yeah. You know what? I have been blown away about the community of women supporting women. So I would say definitely go for it. And I would also get connected with fellow women that have been there. They will provide a lot of insight and lessons learned. And it's good to have some people in your corner cheering for you and helping give advice. So kind of getting connected with other women who have been there, done that, even if it's different industries. Just that camaraderie is really helpful on those hard days to be like, okay, you can do this.
Yes, you can do this. So now how can other women support you?
Yeah, you know what? I think that those connections into nonprofit organization and schools, that's the biggest help. And I would also love to just offer my support. I'd be happy to meet with anybody that is starting a business or thinking about starting a business. I'd be happy to meet with them and kind of share the journey and lessons learned, lessons that I've learned along the way, whether it's about starting a business or that work-life balance.
Well, I have a feeling a lot of people will take that from you. You probably will get a lot of messages.
Well, there's been a lot that have helped shape my journey. And so I would love to be able to pay that forward to others.
I love what you said because not everyone will say that. Because you know what, starting a business, you can't do it alone. I mean, like you always have other people, either it's woman or a man or some other people always help and always supporting you along the way. So I'm glad you say that you give credit to other people because like myself, I can't go woman alone. Either it's staff members or it's family supports, friends support, other women support. But it's been there, because sometimes we just need that shoulder to cry on because that moment's usually shut up.
Yes. And I think that there are resources out there, and I wish I would have known about them sooner, that when you're starting a business, there are some great nonprofits that exist to kind of help you figure out, okay, what problem are you trying to solve? What does customer discovery look like? And kind of put you in these cohorts where you're with other startup entrepreneurs. And that has been really helpful.
And I think that's the resources we need to kind of share more of them, because you're not the first person I heard saying that, because sometimes really, truly, we don't know it exists. We don't know it's out there. So, and I think that promoting more women, like bringing women out there, sharing the stories, and let other women know that there's other women that's there to support. You are not alone in what you are doing. And yes, there's some women that will backstab you, but there's some great women out there that will lift you up and put you in the back and carry where they need to carry you and make sure you succeed in life. I've seen it and I know it exists. So, and I'm grateful to talk to you because you are one of them. And let's keep doing that, because we need to make that change so we can make sure that our next generation, your daughters, if they decided I want to be a businesswoman, they will have the support that they need.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much, Amy, for the chance to talk to you, to get to know more about the organization, what you are doing, and how you're supporting all the nonprofit students, teachers. You are making a huge impact. I know that you just started, but you are rocking it. And then just keep rocking it. Don't stop. Don't give up, because our kids need people to stand for them, and you are one.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everything that you do to promote women in the business world. You know, you're a mouthpiece for us, so we are grateful for all that you do as well.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.